It's 5 years since the devastating Christchurch earthquakes. And the years since those quakes have been a time of trying to rebuild lives, of getting people back into homes that are safe and secure, of rebuilding businesses and livelihoods, making sure that people have employment and income again. And now, 5 years on, we're moving to the stage of looking at our churches. A significant number of our churches were damaged or destroyed in the earthquake, and now a number have to be rebuilt. So we're at that stage in parishes, and many parishes and in the diocese, of looking at the rebuild of churches. And in my meetings with parishes as we look at church design, it's interesting to note what happens. One of the first things that a parish does when it's thinking of building a church is think, well, what design will we have? What shape will it be? What are the things that are important to us? That's a question that's often asked. Parishioners are sometimes even surveyed on this. And they come back with responses like, we want our church to be beautiful, yes, but we want it to be a gathering space, a place for the community. We want it to be comfortable. We want it to be practical. We want it to be affordable. Often my suggestion to these parishes is that we take some time to ask, what is a church? And often people in parishes, when they're asked to focus on what a church building is, do have some very good responses. Another way of asking that same question is to ask, what does God want us to have in our church? What does God need us to have in our church? Which is another way of saying, what do we really need to have in our church? Often a parish takes the opportunity of building a new church as an opportunity to do many other things as well, perhaps to build the hall and the kitchen, and a space which, strangely it seems to me, we then often call the parish centre. It's a space that's not the church. It's a space where people socialise. And of course our Catholic understanding is that the parish centre is not that socialising space, which may be important, but is the place where we gather to be encountered by Christ, to celebrate the sacraments. One of the questions that I sometimes ask the parishes that I'm working with is, where are you going to build your new church? Now that sounds like a strange kind of question, and they might say, well, we're going to build it on the empty section down at the corner, or we're going to build it on the site of the old church. But that's not exactly what I mean by this question. The question, where are we going to build the church, is a question that invites us to look at a much broader perspective, to see the process, the endeavour, the mission of building a church from God's perspective rather than our own perspective. And so the question, where are we going to build the church, is a question that really is asking, are we going to build this church on earth or in heaven? This is a space, this church, this Catholic church, is a space that is not fully in heaven, of course, but neither is it simply on earth. We are in this liminal space. So where are we building the church? We are building a place to be this liminal space that is a privileged place, a prime place of encounter between ourselves, those who worship here, and God who comes to us in the sacraments. A few months ago, Bishop Barry Jones, the Bishop of our Christchurch Diocese, prepared a document on church building. His first document 18 months ago was called The House of God. Now, even that title is saying something. This is not simply a gathering place for humans or a worshipping place for the community. This is the house of God. And the Bishop's second document is this document. This document, God's Dwelling Place. You can find it at the link at the end of this video clip. The Bishop begins with a very brief letter to us, and in the letter he says this: as we stand on the threshold of building and restoring churches, we are, of necessity, stepping into the tradition of 2,000 years of Catholic church building. Tradition is an important word. The Bishop uses that word in the House of God document, as well as this God's Dwelling Place document. But the tradition doesn't mean simply building in an old-fashioned style. It doesn't mean building necessarily a Romanesque or a Byzantine or a Gothic church. But the building needs to be, let's use some T words that may be helpful here, not just tradition, but it needs to be a building, a space that is transcendent, that is timeless. That's what we're building when we are building a Catholic church. Now, when we say all of that, and when you take some time to read this document, you will think this is expensive, we cannot afford to do that. But it's significant, isn't it, that our ancestors here in our land of Aotearoa, New Zealand, when they built their first churches, they poured all of their resources into the building of this church. They lived in very simple homes that were built often, necessarily, very cheaply. But they made sure that their church building was beautiful. They poured their resources into that. They used the best of wood, the best of stone, even imported marble, to build beautiful buildings. I'm very fortunate to be in the parish of the Good Shepherd, Hurunuri, where there are 6 of these beautiful church buildings. But in the years since the building of those churches, things have changed. Now we are more likely to find wooden floors and columns and marble and even cathedral ceilings in a private dwelling than we are to find these in a church building. The next few months for us here in the Diocese of Christchurch, and especially for the parishes that are preparing to build new churches, will be a significant few months, with progress made on the design and the fundraising and the building. Most of all, let's keep that one question in mind. Perhaps that will be helpful. Where are we building our church? Remember, no, it's not fully yet in heaven. That is what we anticipate. But neither is a Catholic church simply on earth. The architecture, the design, the materials used in the building of this church should reveal that transcendent and timeless nature of a Catholic church.